So today is a rainy day, and I saw an article, and I want to read it with you, darlings. Hello, darlings, and welcome to Performance Perspective, where we talk about different performances and then we share our perspectives. If you're new here, hey, I am Cara Darling, and if you love musical theater, then you'll enjoy this channel. So don't forget to subscribe. And speaking of subscribing, I just want to say thank you so much. In my head, I was like, you know what, maybe if I'm lucky, I'll hit 400 subscribers before February. And then you darlings came in and was like, boom, let's go. I really do enjoy listening to other people's perspectives because there might be something that I just don't know, and then I learn about it. And some of you called me a reviewer, whether you were just giving me some critique so then I can improve. But honestly, I just feel like a lady who watches shows in her robe and then just wants to talk about it. Anyways, again, I am so thankful and grateful, and let's get into this article that is from the New York Times. So if you want to read it for yourself, no worries. The link is in the description. And this is On Broadway, Bad Cinderella is a rebel with a Brooklyn accent. So this is an interview with Lady Hanoa and Carolee Carmello. So what I'm going to do is read through the article. I might have some commentary through it. And at the end, there are some things I want to share and talk about. So here we go. Lady Hanoa brings her whole Latina self to Andrew Lloyd Webber's new musical, which also stars the stage veteran Carolee Carmello as her evil stepmother. Lady Hanoa vividly remembers the first time she saw herself represented on Broadway. In the first couple of lyrics, Usanavi says, "Dominican Republic, I love it. Jesus, I'm jealous of it, and I almost jumped out of my seat in tears," Hanoa said of seeing In the Heights as a high school student in 2009. I was like, they said Dominican Republic on Broadway. I didn't know that was allowed. Fast forward 14 years, and Hanoa, 31, a Dominican American born in Brooklyn and raised in Hamden Con, is now in her first lead role on Broadway, starring in Andrew Lloyd Webber's Bad Cinderella, a contemporary musical adaptation of the classic fairy tale. I just hope to pave the way for so many other little Cinderellas who hopefully can see themselves represented on stage now. Hanoa, whose first name is pronounced Lnady, hopefully I've been saying it right, okay, said before a tech rehearsal at the Imperial Theater in Manhattan, where the show is set to open on March 23rd. In Bad Cinderella, a collaboration between the famed composer, the book writer Emerald Fennell, who won an Oscar for the screenplay of Promising Young Women, I did like that movie, and lyricist David Zippel's City of Angels. The heroine is an empowered rebel unwilling to dress up or become a trophy wife. It's one of a string of recent Broadway musicals with strong female leads, including Six and Juliet, and Once Upon One More Time, which is slated to begin previews on May 13. I don't know anything about that musicals. I do think that this is what Bad Cinderella wanted to be. And if you watch Kayla Says, she points out how seeing Bad Cinderella is similar to seeing Phantom of the Opera. We'll get to Kayla Says. There's some stuff that I want to talk about. When Bad Cinderella opened in August 2021 in London, where it was simply called Cinderella, the musical review, a 5-star review from The Guardian critic Chris Wiegand, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, who wrote that it was silly but warm and inclusive, with relatable, down-to-earth heroes and pertinent points about our quest for perfection and our expectations of each other and ourselves. How do I say this? It is a fun show, but when you see what is being provided to us on Broadway in different types of shows, to me, it feels a sense of, okay, there's better things that could be on Broadway. I guess what makes me feel a certain type of way is I do think that because of Andrew Lloyd Webber and his name, that a lot of producers are willing to put their money on it because they will sell tickets because it's him. And then you're kind of left with a show that's just okay. And in a way, it's like I wish there was a new artist or an up and coming artist to be able to put shows on Broadway. It just feels like the effort and work and the prestige to be able to make it on Broadway, the bar is set lower for him because he is who he is. And I feel like that needs to be adjusted. But Lloyd Webber abruptly closed the show in June after a run of less than a year, drawing criticism after a now infamous note from him, read aloud at the final performance, suggested that opening the production during the coronavirus pandemic might have been a costly mistake. He later apologized what he called a misunderstanding, saying he had intended to refer to the challenges his beloved production had faced, not the show itself. I feel like that's an easy PR move to kind of go, no, that's not what I meant. I meant this. When we look at his actions, one, he didn't come to closing night to be able to thank the cast. Also, there was the decision to close it early, where it left a lot of cast members without a job. The in-house didn't know that this was going on, and I think he didn't show up because a lot of it has to do with an ego. Who wants to have their picture taken when they're failing? In the months since, he has been reworking the show for Broadway. There are now 2 new songs, redesigned sets and costumes. We have seen those costumes, and a new Cinderella. And though she does not actually say Dominican Republic on stage, Hanoa said she had been delighted at how much she has been able to infuse the role with her own culture, including recording a Spanish language version of the title track. I mean, that is really cool, I will say, because I didn't know that she had an accent. Whenever she came in and there was an interview, I didn't really hear that accent. The only time that I was like, wait a minute, was in the song Bad Cinderella. She sings, I got style of my own. But every time I hear it, it sounds like she's singing, I got style of my own. Also, hold on, this makes me think of Lindsay Lohan in Confessions of a Drama Queen when they decide to update My Fair Lady and she has that accent. Insert clip here.
Yo, you got no rights to write down what I'm saying. Those are my personal words.
I know it's exaggerated, but reading this article made me think of that. The actress who made her Broadway debut in 2015 as an ensemble member in On Your Feet and recently returned to the show to star as Gloria Estefan in a production at Paper Mill Playhouse in Millburn, New Jersey, admitted to struggling a bit during the rehearsal process, grappling with imposter syndrome and wondering, do I deserve to be here? I think that's fair to say. Everybody goes through imposter syndrome. I'm sort of going through it right now because, hello everyone that's subscribing, and I'm just a girl in a robe that likes watching musicals. The only time you really are an imposter is if you do nothing with your craft, your skills, or whatever position you're at. I'm using myself as an example. If I then say, well, I'm not gonna do as much editing anymore, I'm not gonna try and do my research anymore, then yeah, I am an imposter to myself because I'm not taking any steps to improve and do better and take criticism and allow myself to grow with you darlings. So yeah, I don't think Lynette is an imposter. She would be an imposter if she got cast and just didn't do anything, didn't practice, didn't go to rehearsals, and just showed up and said, where's my Tony? And also, we weren't the casting agents. I don't know what happened in the audition, but clearly they chose her for a certain reason, and that's that. Fortunately, she said she could lean on Carolee Carmello, a veteran of now 16 Broadway shows, who plays her evil stepmother. I love this actress. When I went to the Performing Arts College, she was someone that we were studying as far as her skills, her technique, what was it that she brought into her, different characters. And I honestly wonder how she feels knowing that she's on Broadway and then Parade is happening on Broadway as well. I believe her first role that she starred in was Parade on Broadway. I wonder if this is like a really beautiful circle moment for her, that instead of, oh yes, I used to be on Broadway doing that, it's like, wow, look at me, I'm still going. I don't know, I think that's just cool. She's taught me not to be afraid to surrender, Hanoa said, referring to her fear of making mistakes. As I've watched her try all these different ways of doing something, I keep asking myself, what am I afraid of? Why am I so scared to mess up? everybody makes mistakes. If you've been watching Emily D. Baker and the trial and stuff, there was someone that questioned a witness saying, do you make mistakes? And he said, I have an eraser on my pencil. It's great to go into something with no fear. Why not? That's the point of rehearsal and workshopping until you say, okay, that feels good. Okay, let's work with that. And then you evolve. We're like Pokemon. We all evolve. During a conversation while sitting in the Imperial's mezzanine section, Hanoa and Carmelo, 60, dang, she looks good. Okay, discuss what drew them to the musical, what they have learned from each other, and what it means to be part of this feminist retelling of a classic fairy tale. These are the edited excerpts from the conversation. I don't know what it is, but I guess reading feminist retelling, I guess to me it's okay to tell a story about women and what we go through and empowering them, but to call it a feminist retelling, I don't know. Like Cinderella, to me, it was already a feminist story. I think I'm just reacting to this because saying this is a feminist retelling of the story. And to me, I'm like, well, no, this story to me is about beauty standards within a society. Yes, I do feel women go through it more than men, but it doesn't mean, like, I think of the Marvel superheroes and this, like, look at all my muscles, look how good I look. And then you see the actors, you know, like go back to their normal body type and then they're shamed. But having that kind of physique takes a lot of work and a lot of sacrifices in order to, you know, continue looking picture perfect. And it sounds miserable to me, honestly. So I'm going into their conversation. Instead of going back and forth of who said what, I'm just going to put a picture up so you know who is responding. So what was your first impression of the show when you listened to the London cast recording? That it was really over the top funny. It wasn't taking itself too seriously, which I loved. I love the camp and how badass Cinderella is rather than the sweet, polite, quiet Cinderella we all know. How did you put your own stamp on the roles? I loved what Victoria Hamilton Barrett, who played the evil stepmother in the London production, was doing and thought it was really funny. I wasn't trying to imitate her at the audition, but I definitely used that performance as a flavor because I figured they cast her and it seemed like the audience loved her. And then I just layered my own comedy on top. See, that's something I love. I would take inspiration from other actors, actresses, animals, even cartoons, and then I might put it into the character and then add a bit more of my style in it. So you might feel something familiar, but then yet it's still my own thing. Singing it over and over through the long audition process, I was able to start finding my own voice and the way I would interpret it. Give it this edge, give it this Linnadeism. What's an example of a Linnadeism? Just my Brooklyn Dominican accent, which everyone seems to love here. I'm like, oh, I need to tone it down. No, it's great. When I heard you read the script the first time back in October, I just loved your take on it because it's so New York. Honestly, to me, Linnady looks like she's just trying to grow her confidence as an artist, and that's totally fair. So if you've seen my Angela Lansbury video, there was something interesting she said where if she was playing more of a character that was like a caricature and more comedy, she would put less of herself into the character. But if it was more of an ingenue, she would put, you know, an essence of herself within the character. Now that's something that worked for her, and I believe it can work either way. I mean, you can have a caricature where you put a lot of yourself in there where you're like, this is a side of me I would never show anybody, but I can do it in this character, and it can be the opposite if you feel you need to distance yourself from this ingenue character. Linnady, this is your first lead role in a Broadway production, and Carolee, this is your 16th show. Tell me about the mentorship relationship that's developed between the two of you. I have so much respect for you because I know the pressure that sits on your shoulders. I was about your age when I created my first original role in a new Broadway show, which was Parade. You want to put your stamp on it, and you also don't want to mess up. And you are a masterclass in acting. I deal a lot with imposter syndrome, so watching you give Lawrence Connor, the director, 50 different options and make his job hard because it's like, wow, all of those are great, has been incredible. Linnady, have you gone to Carolee for advice about anything specific? I did ask, what do you do to wind down after a show? Yeah, and I don't think I had a good answer. Yeah, she was like, I'm still figuring out. And I was like, me too. That was helpful to me to know it's okay to still not know. There are a lot of things I still don't know at age 60. I remember how hard that was to be able to relax your mind and body enough that you can go to sleep when you're a mom, because you get home at like midnight and then you have to wake up at 7 and lunch, the bus. Yeah, so it's important not to stay up until 3 in the morning going, okay, well, I didn't do that line right and I have to think about that tomorrow. You have to find ways to let it go and get to sleep. Lynady, how many kids do you have? I have 2 stepkids. They're 12 and 10. I met my husband right down the street in my Broadway debut in On Your Feet at the Marriott Marquis. He's a stagehand and worked on the show. That's really sweet, actually. You both earned business degrees. Was the corporate world a backup career? I just want to be a corporate lawyer. Oh, okay. But after college, I took this job doing a production of They're Playing Our Song at this resort town near my house in Lake George, New York. And I met all these actors from New York who were like, you should move to New York and try it. But Lynady, you actually worked in the business world for a while. You know what? I appreciate Carolee. She's actually trying to put the light on Lynady and build up this confidence in her, and just like, oh, you think that's interesting? She's way more interesting. She's not a stepmother. She's more like a fairy godmother. Oh. After college, I worked here in the city at a private Lebanese bank. Then I heard from a friend about an open call for the developmental lab for On Your Feet, the Gloria Estefan musical. I went, and with my theater experience from high school, I made my Broadway debut in the ensemble. I was the youngest cast member and I cried in rehearsals every single day because I could not believe that I was on stage with In the Heights actors I had idolized. See, this is what I find interesting, where it's like, wait a minute, Lynady, that is a Cinderella story. You working, an opportunity comes, and you could have said, no, I'll just work here. I'm not going to take my chances. I only have a high school, resume in order to go to Broadway. And she did it, and that's, huge. That's exciting, and I love how it's just sort of, brushed over. I'm like, wait a minute. Wait, that's a Cinderella moment. Lynady, you work closely with Andrew Lloyd Webber, including on a new song, Easy to Be Me, he wrote for your character. What was that like? When we were recording some of the songs in the studio, he would ask, do you like this, Lynady? Or are you happy with this? I'm like, do you like this? Are you happy? What does it matter what I think? But that's also important, and I'm grateful that he even asks and cares to ask. Even though I may not be the biggest Andrew Lloyd Webber fan, I do respect him. I do respect he has a lot of accolades, like the fact that Phantom is it still on? I don't know. For 35 years, that is a great achievement. And so I do have respect for what he has done in the theater world. But reading about him asking her, do you like this? I don't take it as a workshop, hey, let's do this or adjust this, because she doesn't say that. I will say it does give me a little red flag. I think of Carrie Hope Fletcher, and I am assuming, but I also wonder if he did the same thing with her. Do you like this song? And she goes, yes, I do. And we'll see years down the line of how they actually feel about the songs. And they might be in a place where they say, listen, I'm forever grateful that I got to work with Andrew Lloyd Webber, because that name will always be impressive to people. It is. And we can't take that away. The other red flag I have is I'm scared that because Andrew Lloyd Webber is asking, do you like it? Do you all this stuff, is that when criticism comes, he might do the same thing he did with the West End, where it's, hey, it was all them. They didn't do the show of how I wished it was done and could have been portrayed. So it just, I don't know. I feel weary. That's it. What is it like to be part of this diverse feminist retelling of a classic fairy tale? It's inspiring to me that Cinderella has a voice and she isn't afraid to use it. She stands up for herself, to her stepmother, to her sisters, to the town, to Prince Sebastian, to anyone, even though she's struggling with her own self because of the way society makes her feel like an outcast. My daughter was about 2.5 when the television version that starred Brandy came out. Oh my gosh. That probably is one of my favorite versions. I love Whitney Houston. Okay. And she was mesmerized. at the point that was sort of groundbreaking because it was very diverse casting, and that's what I loved about our cast too. It's very diverse, and I think people will see themselves up there and feel represented. Now, I may be crazy, but when thinking of Bad Cinderella, the ensemble and people around besides Sebastian and Cinderella is that everyone is very similar. Everyone holds themselves to the beauty standards. I guess I find it interesting where they're saying you might see yourself on stage, and I'm like, you mean like someone that might look like me? Because I am the beauty standard, baby! Do you understand where I'm a little confused on that? What do you hope people take away from the musical? That the Cinderella story is not about waiting around for someone to rescue you. It's about being your own person and trusting your own instincts. Carmelo, we're gonna have to agree to disagree. That's not how I see Cinderella. Listen, not every hero has a sword in a big battle. Some heroes are quiet and kind. Listen, have you seen Everything Everywhere and In Between? The dad, I know I'm going to sound crazy, but I didn't just cry. I wailed. I was weeping at the scene with the father about kindness. Heroes come in different shapes and forms, and even sound-wise, right? The loudest person isn't necessarily the hero. It can also be a very humble, quiet person. I hope audiences walk out knowing that they don't have to change who they are to conform anybody else. That is the end of the article. I would love to know your perspective on it. Now, I want to talk about Kaylee Says, and I really liked her video. I found it interesting because she did go see the preview. So I'll put her video in the description, but there was something she talked about the fairy godmother, and then she said, I wish they made a choice on whether the godmother was, like evil and ominous, or she really was trying to help Cinderella because it's very confusing on what her purpose is there. Listen, we love an evil fairy godmother, we do. And if they had it where the fairy godmother is like, finally, she's here. I wanted it to be the most beautiful town. Like, I've been wanting to put my hands on you. And Cinderella is essentially bad for business, right? So I guess they could have workshopped with that and had more fun with it, where she was trying to get rid of Cinderella, destroy Cinderella, and then everybody in town was like, we don't need your services because this is who we are, and like, we're beautiful in this way, and we don't need to go and get nipped and tucked. They could have workshopped that, and the godmother would have been so much more. Okay, well, anyways, darlings, that's it for today's episode. I would love to know your perspectives, and without further ado, stay warm and take care, darling.